All right, so welcome to Startup Business Q&A number 26, which means 6 months today. I started this Q&A, this live session every Monday, 1 p.m. GMT, and some of you guys have been with me from the start. I'm so thrilled to be getting this far, and who knows where we'll be in the future. And it's funny how you look at, I was watching Gary Vaynerchuk recently, and you know, he did 1,000 episodes of Wine Library, and he's on something like 250 episodes or something close like that on Ask Gary V. So I'm not saying I might get to those kind of heights, but to hit this is it's a real testimony to you guys supporting. Someone asked me, it must have been over a year ago, what is the number one thing you would give as advice to a business owner or a startup or to an entrepreneur? And I said, hands down, the thing that means you will always win is consistency. You cannot beat consistency, because even if you have people who are fantastic, had a big spike of traffic, or they do something compelling, if you're there every single day, or in this case every single week, you become that rock that isn't shaken, it doesn't move away, it doesn't fade a bit, or you don't kind of get bored and move on to something else. It's all about consistency, and you always will win in the end. I've proven it with my businesses and all of the things I've been doing lately, and it's something I push or rather tell my clients to do too. So make sure consistency is key. I'm so thrilled to be doing this. So 26 episodes, literally not missed a single one. We've done different things along the line. It's not always been a Q&A. Sometimes it's been, you know, a bit of startup teaching or some kind of idea or something I've shared. But I'd love to know, I reckon I do probably 8 questions each time. So if you think about that, that's probably something in the region of 400, over 400 questions that have been answered, if my math is any good. So that's a lot, right? That's a lot of questions, and thank you. And actually it all started because every single day, the people who I consult with, the people who are running their businesses, they send through questions and I help them answer them, and so on. And there were so many questions coming through, also because of the 8-step startup course, that I thought, well, why not, rather than just helping one person here, because so many of the questions were the same and so many of the questions were so general, and I thought, you know what, let's just share this. So every single time I do one of these, you know, by several hours later, there's north of 100 people who have watched this. And so I just want to say thanks so much for all of you who watched it. And here's to the next 6 months. Long may it continue. I really enjoy doing this, and it's a wonderful way, I hope for you too, to start a week by nailing the questions you have. If you have any questions, ping them over and we'll answer them. So you can put them into the comments. But otherwise, thanks so much for joining on the first kind of milestone, I feel. Well, the first one was, of course, episode 1, but it's nice to be getting 6 months under my belt. So I've got a few questions here. Firstly, let's start off. So I'm naturally introverted, and I know I have to get in front of people to sell my products. What resources would you suggest to help me become more extroverted? You know, this is an interesting question because there's someone I'm working with at the moment who has this kind of issue, and it's one of those things where you have to remember Peter Drucker's book, Managing Oneself. And if you remember, there's a part of that where it says, in order to be effective with yourself in building a business or managing yourself, you need to be aware of what you're good at. And I think the line is something along the lines of, most people think what they're good at, they know what they're good at, but they're actually not good at that. And most people don't realize what their weaknesses are. If you know you're not particularly good at a certain thing, like really bad at it, like for instance, I'm not particularly good at ice skating, then working hard and putting those resources into being good at ice skating, if that might help my world, is often not really the best use of your time or energy. So the suggestion here is you should be self-aware enough to realize what your strengths are, what you're good at, and what things you're not really so great at. Those things, you know what, get to a level of proficiency where you know what's going on, but move on to someone else. Let someone do it for you. As a great example of this is Facebook ads and all the kind of operations behind the scenes for the funnels for 8-Step Startup and my other courses. That is not least a lot of technical ability that's needed, but also huge amounts of time as well. Getting someone to do that for you means that you can focus on your strengths and they can focus on theirs. So tuning into this question, If you're naturally a really shy, introverted person, I could say to you, look, you have to get out there. You have to speak to your, potential customers. You've got to make this happen. That's not really a particularly helpful solution. So what you need to do is think, how could I do this differently? Perhaps you need to find a way in which your shyness or introverted approach can work for you. Maybe take a different approach. You don't have to be a full-on energetic, hyperactive, pump kind of salesperson. Perhaps you need to be someone slightly different when you're approaching prospects, or employ someone else. There's a guy who's working with me who's similar, and he said, I'm really quite introverted, and he's using his sister, and his sister's he said she's a 9-year-old really cute girl, and she's handing out leaflets, and they're lapping it up because these people are like, oh, look at that poor little cute girl, let's take the leaflets. And he said then he follows up with them and speaks to them, but if they see this bloke there, then people don't maybe respond quite as well. Plus, if he's shy, he doesn't want to engage, whereas she is really fully extroverted. So think on that, rather than thinking, I'm not very good at doing this kind of thing, but I have to do this kind of thing. Well, what could you do differently? And another great example, just to finish on this, there's a guy I know who's built a website, and it's screaming out for the product he's providing, I must have a website video. Like on the landing page, he has to have a video just to explain the complexities of the software he's built. But he's like, I'm not really good in front of camera, it's not really my kind of vibe. Some people aren't really, down with that kind of thing. And I said, so get on Fiverr, get someone to write you your script, which you of course approve, get someone to do the animation that describes the script, and then pay for someone even to do the voiceover as well. And I think I worked out it was something like $15 that entire thing would cost. Then you've got this polished video that's made by someone who's great at doing the animation. You've seen these how-to kind of animation ads, videos, I'm sure. It's got added voiceover from someone who does this professionally, so it's perfect at intonation and delivery and dynamics and so on. And then it's got a script that's nailing key points, got a call to action, and has all of the main benefits put in it. So think, maybe I should just do it differently. If I need to be a different person in order to run my business, then I'm looking at perhaps the wrong way of doing it. All right. So for instance, if you don't want to do something in a certain way, then find a different way to do it. I remember really well when I started a Taekwondo school. I've got 2 of them now, but when I started them, it was a come one, come all approach. I thought, well, the only way to grow this is to get as many people in as possible. But the thing is, I only really wanted to train certain types of people. It wasn't any kind of thing against them. It's just I enjoyed more a certain grouping, in terms of age group and things like that. So what I thought was, rather than having some lessons where I not struggle, but I don't really relish the thought of teaching that age group, and that was maybe the 3 to 5 year old age group, why don't I just focus on the stuff I do well? And then go from there. And if I take the energy that otherwise would be spent trying to make this kind of lesson work into the other ones, well, then they can grow larger and more than offset the other one. Plus I still play to my strengths. Okay, so think on that. Just to answer this directly, rather than looking at resources to change, for some, their DNA, just look at a different way you can do things altogether. Okay, sometimes the direct route isn't the best one. Sometimes you have to be a bit more intelligent about it. Employ someone else. Maybe look at a different way of doing things and then take it from there. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Next question, which do you prefer Snapchat stories or Instagram stories, and why? Which do I prefer? Well, just so you're clear, so everyone knows, the Snapchat stories are the idea that you upload your image or video or whatever, and it lasts for 24 hours, and you can keep uploading them so people can see what you've done throughout your day. And the Instagram stories is literally the same thing. So rather than just followers on your Instagram account seeing an image or a video, they can see what you've done the whole day. And again, it's a bit of a kind of a video diary of sorts if you wanted. Personally, I know they're both the same. Personally, I prefer Instagram stories, even though it's the younger direct rip-off of Snapchat stories. But the reason why was because I have much more of a following. I've just clicked over 24,000 followers on Instagram, which isn't, well, you know, earth-shatteringly high, but these are people I've worked hard to cultivate a relationship, who engage with me. Many customers have come through Instagram for me. I've generated some from Snapchat, but the reality is that because I was more established through Instagram first, that's what I prefer, just to answer the question. And that is why, because I have more engagement. If I'd started with Snapchat stories first, then of course I would have probably said Snapchat. And I do think that you don't necessarily need to view them as too different. Just look at who your who your audience really is. I'm sure there are some ways you can find out demographics here, but if you do tend to find, like Musically, for instance, is for the millennial crowd, that Snapchat is more along the same lines, then it may well be that your broader spread of age group and things like that you tend to get with Instagram by comparison to the younger age range that you tend to get with Snapchat. If one of those suits you better, then bear that in mind, okay? Snapchat tends to have that a little bit more edge. It's not something anyone can put their finger on. It's just trendier because it's perhaps newer. It could be the novelty factor. It just could be because it was the early adopters were the millennial crowd that were looking for something alternative to Facebook, and they didn't necessarily jump on Instagram. It was more the Snapchat thing, and that comes from me speaking to a lot of millennials, you know, those who are in their late teens, early 20s now, who are saying, you know what, we don't do Facebook quite as much because mum's on there now, and so we are on Snapchat. You know, it deletes what we have to say after a day. And what's interesting about that is that again, in the reverse of what I've found with Instagram, because that's where I started, they typically started a lot more with Snapchat. I do feel also, although this isn't entirely the case, that Instagram is a little more arty, whereas Snapchat's a little bit more real, a bit more dirty, like this is what's going on today. But maybe that's just the circles I'm in. That tends to be what I find. So yeah, there's no difference between the two. Except from the potential audience, you tend to find it's more than the younger side with Snapchat. I prefer Instagram simply because I've got the greater traction there, because I've been doing it a hell of a lot longer than Snapchat. But in the main, if you're going to post one thing on Instagram stories, there's nothing really to say that you wouldn't be doing on Snapchat as well, unless again you're targeting a really specific demographic, the younger crowd, but even then you'd probably duplicate it. So it's something to really think about. There are nuances that are different there. Okay, as I say, this is the thanks very much Avinash for joining in, and yeah, this is the 26th episode, so this is 6 months today, exactly at this time when I launched this Q&A. So if you have any questions, do ping them onto the comments. Because the next question: what do you use to shoot your videos? I'm thinking of investing in a video camera for my YouTube channel. Well, I use my phone, because the phone is absolutely fine for what I do. What people need is to be able to see a fairly high def video of what I'm doing. What people don't need is 120 frames a second and, you know, 4K. You know, it's a nice thing to do, and in time I may well use that 4K, but I just don't see any sense in it, because I could easily spend a couple of grand on a camera, and I probably will in the future, but right now I just don't see any point in it, because everything I want to achieve is done right here, and the versatility that comes with the phone means you just stick it in, press go, and then we're away. So that's what I use because of convenience, and it's not like you lose out that much with the camera phone. You know, this is a high-end Samsung, and it's a really good quality, I find. But in terms of your question here, investing in a video camera for your YouTube channels, well, it depends, doesn't it? Because what's your YouTube channel on? If it is, and I saw one the other day, I can't remember her name, a lady that does lifestyle tips, and she's got all this kind of soft focus, and it's meant to look all fresh. It's almost like she's recording it in a spa, you know, there's beautiful flowers in the background. it's ludicrously high definition, and you know, it kind of adds to the vibe that it looks all plush and clean and high quality and classy. That's really necessary. Whereas if you're not doing that kind of thing, I mean, if you're shooting nature videos, well, then you need a high quality camera probably, because you're going to lose out a bit on the quality. Whereas if you're just doing a Q&A like this, HD is absolutely fine. So just think hard on that. On face value, with your question, I would suggest you probably don't need to bother. If you're a startup business, you should think carefully about where you're putting your capital. And a classic example I will probably return to in years was in 2015 when a guy said, I'm launching my new company soon. He was looking for some help for me, and he was so excited about telling me that he's got his business idea, and already, this is exact words, already, Richard, I've just spent $300 and I've got a designer working on the logo this week. And it's like, you've spent $300 on a designer to work on the logo. This isn't even in some kind of fashion world where a logo is fairly useful. This is just I can't even remember what it was. I think it was just a personal trainer or something. You just don't need to worry about spending $300 on a logo. What you need to worry about is the fact you've got no customers right now. So, you know, some people misweight themselves so much, and dropping a few G's on a camera isn't necessary unless your world on this YouTube channel is going to revolve around this camera. So bear that in mind. I mean, it's funny how when your net worth is really high, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend loads of money on things. A classic example is Warren Buffett still living in the house he spent $31,000 on, you know, 40 years ago in Omaha. Likewise, when I, you know, 8-Step Startup is absolutely killing. It is one of my best products that I've generated. The volume is outrageous, and you know, recording more video for it, you think, oh, have you got all the soft lighting and like all these expensive tripods? Yeah, I've got soft lighting. Yeah, I've got a tripod right here, but you know, the soft lighting was really not expensive. The tripod, I remember from Amazon Basics, is £26, £26, and it's like, that's all you need. I need something to hold the phone. I don't need a pro tripod because I don't need it to hold anything in any particular way. So some people can go over the top on things. You need to think about what the point is of that. And actually I was asked about this recently, about what car I drive. And the thing is, for some people they care about cars, some people they don't. I get it that if you're in the public eye, so to speak, that perception is important. I know that some people who do life coaching, they will you know, they will like rent a Ferrari so it looks like they've got the lifestyle, because of course that's a point of leverage if they have great perception. But my focus is more on getting down in the dirt and actually doing the building of the robust business and substance, you know. And if people like what I do and buy into me because of the substance and the content, rather than that guy looks flashy, I'll be blinded by the hype. Because what I don't want is people buying things from me because they think it looks good rather than know that there's some real substance there. So that's why I just, and also I just don't care about cars anyway. I want a car that works. And you know, recently I put a load of money into my house and into, well, basically into a load of shares as well, because I see that being a way better investment than splurging on a car that I just don't need. So that's why I didn't bother that much. Jack, thanks so much for joining in. You've got a question here. Is there a way to stop phone calls from interrupting your live broadcast? Tell people not to call you. And this is a serious point. I'm always consistent in when I do this broadcast, and most people in my ecosystem know the live Q&A is at 1 p.m. GMT Monday and Thursday, and I tend to not get many calls. Having said that, third parties might try and call. You tend to find that you know, there's not much you can do about it really, but if someone does call, just reject it. But what I do think you should do is turn off your Bluetooth, turn off the sound as well, because otherwise you've got these pinging sounds all the time when you've got notifications for other things. There may be a workaround, but I'm not entirely sure what it is. The alternative is, if you want to do a live broadcast, you can do it through your fan page, and there's a workaround where you can just use an HD camera like a webcam, slap it into your there's software you can use that puts it into your fan page. Then of course your webcam doesn't receive phone calls, and so you can do the live stream that way. But in terms of versatility, whipping out your phone and do a live broadcast is easy, but it's inherent that you may get phone calls on it because of course, you know, you're using your carrier in order to send the data. What I suppose, just while I'm thinking about it, you could switch off phone calls somehow by turning off your network operator on your phone and then using Wi-Fi only in order to do the live broadcast. But of course, nowadays we have Wi-Fi phone calls. You know, if my phone is on Wi-Fi, I'll receive phone calls over the Wi-Fi. So it's not much you can do about it, I'm afraid. Just hope people don't call you or reject them. And something like this, you know, it's normal enough. This isn't a formal presentation to a board. This is just me chatting to great people. And with that in mind, I don't think anyone would care that much if I get a phone call and switch it off. So I don't know what the situation is for you in terms of how you would use that, Jack. But that's my response to you. Hope that helps. Next question: is there such a thing as a fear of success? I think there is, you know. There's certainly a fear of failure for people, and that often is the reason why they don't execute on things. This is why you get people who are startup business owners who are generating some income and they're sitting on, you know, $30,000 worth of capital, but they won't spend it because the fear is that they'll lose some of that money. They should be investing that money, but there's that fear of what about if I don't get it back? So make some more in a different way. But there's that fear of that. I do think that there's no reason why there wouldn't be a fear of success as well. I think some people know what they need to do, know their solution is good, but their comfort zone, or that feeling they get when being in the comfort zone, actually dictates that they almost don't want to step outside of it, even if they know that success is within touching distance. And the crazy thing is, when you just try it, like for instance with the 8-Step Startup course, when you or even do these live Q&As. I remember the first one I did, I was like, I wonder how it will go. But when you just try it, you tend to find it's never as bad as you thought. And moreover, if you're half intelligent, you make things work when you're doing it. And so having a bit more of a focus on execution and finding out the way to do things as you go is a really good way of bypassing this fear of success. And with fear, anyway, I'm not a life coach, but this whole this whole thing about fear gets asked all the time, you know. And it's down to one thing: if you allow yourself to think about things, then you tend to think about the outcomes and how they might work out and how they might not work out. And that's a form of procrastination. One way to work around it is to be so prepared that you can see the way the path should be, you can see the way you get to the result you're after. Another way to work around it is to work and focus so much on execution and delivery, you don't have time for a moment for your mind to wander. Okay, when it's pondering over how things are going to go, it will lead itself to, but what about if it doesn't work out? Okay, so you tend to find the more you do, the less you have time. And the less you have time, the less you think about stuff. The less you think about stuff, the less you worry. Simple as that. So busy yourself with the distraction of actually doing something. You tend to find that the fear is starved of its food, which is time. So you can't think about if it's going to go well or not. I tend to not bother. I hope this isn't disrespectful for anyone who does go through this, but I tend to feel like it's a bit of a waste of time questioning how I'm feeling when I'm doing things. I know recently I had a load of things I needed to do with my accounts, and you'll just start, you know, and so as you're doing it, it's like, oh, I'm not really enjoying this, I don't really want to do it. Well, too bad, because the way you need to understand it is that I'm the vehicle or the device that my business needs in order to get things done. My business, without me involved in it, is innate. It can't do anything. It just sits there, okay? So it requires me to be the point, the thing that does action. You understand? So if it's the thing that does action, and I've decided instead of doing the things the business needs, that I'm going to spend time thinking about how I feel about doing an action that the business needs, then it's sitting there, like almost if you personify the business, it's like, okay, so we have to wait here. We have to pause for a bit and wait while you get over yourself and get all a bit emotional. The best way to look at it is, I don't get to decide how I feel or not. And if I do feel good or I do feel bad, it's superfluous to the fact that the action has to take place, okay? Your business is more important than something that has to keep pausing or waiting while you get your head together. So get on with it. And if you don't enjoy it, well, too bad. The business needs it. That's if the business needs it. And if you do enjoy it, well, that's a nice perk as well. But motivation doesn't need to come into it. Just do it. And the reason why this is a good approach is that over time, as long as you do enough actions and you keep doing things, you move to a stage where you're moving to that state of flow, really. You've just got real momentum. And people who are, it's not bad being lazy, it is a state. Okay, it's a state and it's a habit. So what happens, because I've been there myself, when I remember a few years back, I went through a period and I was just like, I know what I need to do. Okay, I knew exactly what I needed to do and I just couldn't be bothered. I had no kind of mojo or there's kind of no interest or impulse behind me to get me moving. I remember thinking, it's crazy how all the things I need are within reach and I even know what I need to do, but I literally can't be bothered. And, you know, you'd find things to distract yourself. And that's because it was a habit to be distracted. It was just what I was used to doing. So I was told someone recently this, that the key is you take a minute step, a tiny little step. Take one little step, the tiniest action, something you know is going to be straightforward. Then the moment you've finished, you do another step, a tiny little thing. And these could be so imperceptible that nothing happens, but the whole point is it's not about getting things done. So this is crucial. It's not about getting things done, but taking these little points of action is about creating a habit of taking points of action and actually acting on things, completing tasks, your objectives, whatever it is. Over time, you'll get to a point where it becomes part of the fabric of your day. And people always say, oh, you know, things like, how do you hustle like Gary Vaynerchuk? Or how do you work as hard as Grant Cardone? And these people noted for their non-stop work. It's nothing magical. What it is that they are so used to doing it. That's their routine. That's what they do. And they've been doing it such a long time. It's all they've known. Okay, and it started a long time ago, and no doubt when they first started taking action they found it just as hard as you might, but in taking action it helps build momentum. Momentum equals that flow, and if you pack your day with actions, seriously give it a try. Just say to yourself, I'm not going to be emotional, I'm not going to think, I'm not going to rest. If I'm going to spend 3 days, even just 3, even though you'd arguably need more than that, just 3 days, literally non-stop action, you'll get into a state where that is one way of actually doing things. So I've found this myself, because now when I look at people say, oh, you work so hard, it's crazy, how'd you get so much done? Actually, it's more that I'm so used to getting things done that I know nothing else. There's no question that years and years ago, if I'd sat at a desk, I would have done some work. I've always been a productive guy, but I would have let my eye wander. Oh, what's going on Facebook? Oh, okay, that's a funny YouTube song I just clicked on. I'll click on that. And then you know what happens. I'll look at this one. Oh, I'll look at this one. It's 20 minutes later. I just want to check out this. And then you're off on a tangent, but then you come back and do a bit of work. Whereas now, I'll sit in here with the obvious exception of breaks for a coffee and my nap or a reading of a book or something. I'll literally do zero except things directed at my sell approach. So cash flow / customers, essential task and lines of work, lines of focus. So only on the things that relate to my world, my business world. Literally never anything like, oh, I'll just listen to a bit of music from that. You know, I'll check out that post. Oh, that's something interesting in my news feed. No, not interested, only on the work. And it's not like it's hard, it's difficult to do now. It's actually something that I just know because that's the momentum I've got, because I've always been doing it. I say always, but for a long time now. It's easy to do this startup Q&A every Monday because that's what I do every Monday. It's easy to spend a couple of hours writing reports, or rather going through the reports from my clients and answering all their detailed questions every single day. I'm talking about Sundays as well. It's easy to do it because that's what I do every day. It's easy to spend a couple of hours tuning my buffer and speaking to my Facebook funnel guys and my other team doing my social media and stuff like that. It's easy to do all this stuff every day rather than going, oh man, I've got more work to do. because that's what I do, okay? And that's what I've got. It's nothing magical, it's just that that's what my world looks like, and it continues to do that every single day, so you get into a state of momentum happening, meaning flow, and then of course you continue it. If I stopped, now this is the thing, if I stopped for a week doing that work, in the same way as if Gary Vaynerchuk stopped for a week, or insert name here of anyone who you quote think hustles all the time, after a week or so they'd wane slightly, because naturally their body is moving into a position where it's becoming a habit to not work like that. So hopefully this makes things clear. That's what you need to be thinking. All I need, if I need to get action happening, if I want to be, rather than someone who posts on Facebook that they hustle and grind, someone who actually is so busy that they barely have time to do that, I need to be someone who only ever focuses on doing actions. And then you tend to find it's really not hard. It's funny because when you're in that state, you're like, how on earth could I have been in a position where I would just sit about and procrastinate? And honestly, I remember really well, like several years back, there were times when it'd be like, oh, I've got some cash coming from one of my businesses. I'll stroll into town, I'll walk, I'm not going to drive, I'll walk into town, I'll deposit the money manually myself, all on my own, and then I'll stroll back. You know what, I'll get a coffee on the way, so that will be nice, with a wonderful hashtag lifestyle nonsense I was going through. But the point is there, I was thinking, that's a way I could actually just chill out and not really do much work, but it's businessy, isn't it, because I'm dropping money off. It's absurd. You look back and you think, wow, I was finding new ways to make excuses and essentially procrastinate a load. Action, little actions, tiny actions that are insignificant and easy, ones you can do in 20 seconds. They're the kind of actions, if you're lazy or procrastinating or waiting or not acting, it's nothing in your DNA, it's just your current state. It's the habit you currently have. If you crack your your fingers, if you pick your nose, whatever it is, if you check your phone all the time, if you're one of those people, even in public, even at the dinner table, even with friends and family when they're gathering around, come over to see you, and you're on your phone like this, that's actually habit, okay? So all it is you to disrupt it and change it and do something different. I get a bit ranty about this because people think, oh, that's just how that person is. It's not, it's how they currently are, and that's something that can easily be changed in the same way as they easily become like that, okay? So if you're the kind of person that, and it's not necessarily bad, you might find it's wonderful, if you want to do this, but I don't know, but if you watch telly all night, you spend all night watching X Factor and sitting there chilling out and not doing anything, if that's your thing, then good for you. But if it's something you do, I feel like this, I'm sure many of the kind of people who watch this do, if you sit there watching television, after a short amount of time, it's like, I've been even just watching this 20 minutes and I'm getting bored now, I'm getting itchy, I feel I should be doing something else. That's a sign that I'm not doing the thing I'm used to doing, okay? And if you are the kind of person that sits there eating telly and you know full well you could be doing better, you've got greater potential than that, then what you've got to do is turn it off. That's the first action, just turn it off, which is harder than it thinks. It's like getting off your chair to do the washing up. No one's interested in doing that. It's like on an advert break, saying, do you know what, I'm going to get down, instead of waiting and watching a commercial on toothpaste, I'm going to do 30 press-ups. Seriously. When I did 10 years ago when I was competing in Taekwondo, anytime there was an advert break, I would be dropping a pattern or practicing kicks or something like that. It was like, oh, there's an opportunity, there's 3 minutes to do something. So tiny actions, something like that can make a tiny change, okay? It doesn't mean stop watching telly, but just do something. And remember, this is the crucial thing. The moment you've done something, do another thing. Because you're like, okay, I need to add these kind of building blocks together. If you strung together 5 minor actions, such as reply to an email, ping out 1 tweet, I'm feeling great today. I did one a while back, actually. Write the word win or winning into Facebook, then leave it. I've done something, then do something else that's productive as well. Do 5. My God, you'll feel so much better. And there'll be a sense, you know what happens at that tipping point? You start thinking, do you know what? Hang on a sec. I'm feeling a bit of momentum now. This is a bit weird. It's, oh, let me do something else. And that's how you get into that zone of like, now it's 6 hours and I've been just dropping and you go, I've had the best day ever. They're the times when you should be piling on activity. Oh, it's 1 a.m, but I just can't stop. So don't stop. Just keep going then. On the days when you can do, you know what? Let's start a book. Why not? I'm going to need to do one anyway. Let's make an event for myself. Let's do the next thing. If you've got that momentum, then you need to keep building it. And that's the way to it. It's so crucial. Carl, you're right adding that. It's so true. Start with one thing. The mistake is doing one thing and then sitting back and going, I've done one thing today. It's called progress. Tomorrow I'll try and do 2 things. No, you need momentum. Like a car is sitting there. If you nudge it, it moves a bit, then it will stop. You nudge it, then you nudge it again, keep pushing it so the thing starts moving. So one thing, then another, then another, then another, keep going. It's so crucial. Momentum is key. Otherwise you'll start and then you'll stop. And then you get starting and then you'll stop. Which is why in sales, you know, I did this for years. In sales on a Monday morning, it's tough to get people going. Why? Because they've been in the habit of not doing any work over the weekend. When I worked at another company and we had a lot of Middle Eastern clients because their weekend is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we were on the phones at home. So coming on Monday, it's like a Tuesday and we're all go. And it's amazing how habits can change you. Okay, so bear that in mind. So I hope that kind of helps. It's important to bear that in mind. And those of you, I mentioned a book there. I've started it. I'm not going to be the kind of person who goes, oh, I'm writing a book, you know, but I'm actually going to pop one out there in the new year, and part of that will be the momentum factor, because the idea is it's about how to intelligently build a startup business, doing the right things you need to do, and that being that. So that will be part of it. But hopefully that answers. I went a little bit on a tangent, but that's an important thing to be said. So again, those of you joining in now, thank you very much for doing so. We are episode 26. It's the 6 months that I've been doing this, literally to the day, to the hour. I've been running this every Monday at 1 p.m. GMT, and I love the fact that so many people are joining in. And I was saying, I think I've probably answered north of 400 questions. This is pithy stuff. This is tiny compared with, you know, Ask Gary V, if you want to compare that. But, you know, it doesn't matter. The reality is that you guys have all really helped me so much. And with the support that I get, as I say, within a day, I always get well over 100 views of this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have continued doing it. So I can't wait for the next milestone. But it means a lot to me that I'm on here and you guys are with me in the same way as I was 6 months ago today. Anyway, let's just do a couple more questions. In 8-Step Startup, a great start to a question, by the way, is in 8-Step Startup, as if because it's someone who's done the course, so well done. In 8-Step Startup, not that I am selling, you should do it, it's $57 for 73 lessons. So in case you hadn't heard of it, 8stepstartup.com, I might as well, right? 8stepstartup.com is 73 lessons on how to build a startup business. Yes, it's my 15 years experience, and yes, I coach startup business owners and we get massive success, and I've got my originally startups that are now fully fledged. But in addition, I interviewed professors at business schools, best-selling authors, the kind of books you guys read, and of course, the entrepreneurs and business owners who are really making it happen as well. So people who work for Google and Facebook, but also other companies in very interesting areas, they have contributed to the course. If $57 isn't enough for you to think I should tap into these guys, I don't know what level of value you need, because 73 lessons, I should hope there's some value in there for you. Literally not one person has ever come back to me and said, I didn't think that course was worth it. Only good stuff. And if there's a money back guarantee, well then you've got nothing to lose except from momentarily $57, which you'll then get back if it's terrible. But again, no one's ever said it. Just saying. Shall I read the rest of the question? In 8-Step Startup, you're talking about having an amount of money that you reinvest to grow myself and the business. Yes, I am. That's in the finance strand. Can you give a guide as to how much I should reinvest? That's a really good question. So what I'm saying here, in the finance strand of 8-Step Startup, there are a number of kind of rules and ideas and frameworks for you. And one of them is this thing called the 3 milestones. And in short, it's when the first milestone is getting your business to what's known as wipe its face. So when it's wiping its own face, it means it's paying for itself, just. So the outgoings each month, you know, paying the bills, all the supplies, whatever it is, the advertising and that is covered by the income that the business makes, and that's it. So it turns over what it needs to pay out, nothing else. The next milestone is a level of money that you bring in to the company. So maybe $6,000 on top of that first milestone that you save inside the business to reinvest. The third milestone above that is when you start paying yourself. Okay, seriously, the mistake people make is, oh, we're making a bit of profit now, I'll skim that off. We're on holiday now. We're going to go on holiday. No, the mistake is doing that. Unless you're one of those lifestyle businesses that requires you, by the way, this is something worth bearing in mind, the business requires you to be in Trinidad one week and Japan the next because the video is a lifestyle, you know, the business is a lifestyle one. But that's rare. Typically, it's the case that you need to leave the money in, or rather reinvest the money in you, improving you, courses, mentors, you know, books, and things like that, networking sessions and conferences, and into the business as well. So investing in better equipment, investing in, you know, expansion, investing in staff, things like that. How do you know how much to put in? To begin with, it should be all in. And my approach was always, with any business, is I'm never, and people who've worked with me know this, I've never used another one of my businesses to prop up a new business. So for instance, if I have company A and company B, company A is established, was a startup doing well now, and I'm starting up company B. I personally, well, one of my businesses will give a loan, you know, so $5,000 to this business to start itself up. That's a loan that is held against it. It needs to pay me back. The company A is completely in its, you know, working on its own, as if it's a completely different entity. If company A is doing really well and company B is not, then company B needs to get its act together rather than pulling in off company A. And it depends sometimes, because I can maybe use money to reinvest in company B from a group or something, but that's a bit more complex. The point here is that the business has to look after itself. When it's able to, first milestone, and then make more money than it needs to just to survive, so second milestone, the question here is how much of that do you reinvest in myself and into the business to make it grow even better? All in to begin with. If you can live on what you have, maybe you have a part-time job or a full-time job in addition to your business. When your business has moved past the first milestone and starting to make money for itself, reinvest the lot, like all of it, just all of it. You know, it's important to give yourself some rewards. All right, because then otherwise you're like, I've gone through so much pain, it's now making money, it's in fact making profit, and I'm still not paying myself. It's important to give yourself a bit of reward, because actually you start feeling like you're getting some kind of return. Unless, a bit like me, I'm such a kind of stoic, I really thrive on the thrill of doing the business doing well. But what you do tend to find is that if you're going to skim a bit of money for yourself, it needs to be a minimal amount. I'm talking 10% maybe, but all the rest should be reinvesting. Until you're at a position where you're saying, every month I'm reinvesting this kind of money into the company. I'm talking about maybe ad spend or something like that. You know, or going to another conference or engaging with a new influencer or something like that, if that requires money. The third milestone, the level above that, at which you're like, okay, I'm going to start paying myself from it. You've got to set yourself a number, but my view is that you should be quite measly with the amount of money you give yourself. And you want to be setting a number and saying, if my company needs $2,000, then when it's on $6,000, I will invest all of that additional $4,000. Thereafter, I'll start paying myself from it. But until then, it's a huge amount of reinvestment. And you know, the more you reinvest, the more it comes back and pays you in the future. And maybe a good way of doing it, and one of the first people I ever connected with for 8-Step Startup was Andrew Leikerman, who's the dean, Sir Andrew Leikerman, he's the dean of London Business School. And he said that milestones and objectives are critical when it comes to performance measuring. So when you're measuring how well your company's doing, you need to say, right, here's a level I'm aiming for. And when I get to that level, that's at a certain objective complete. And at the level, you might have a, say, 5% of that money that comes to you in some form of reward or dividend or buys you something. Do you see what I mean? So bearing that in mind, you have to earn it if you want to make some money. And whenever I would want to buy something for the business, I'd say, you know what, if it's a bit of an indulgence but still business related, I need to earn that money above what I'm bringing in normally, because then it pays for it. And in fact, the book I read 13 years ago was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and there's this classic moment when he said, I think it was the Automatic Millionaire, David Back actually, he said these two people came into his office and he said, we wanted to buy a Porsche, and when we bought a Porsche, it was because we made enough money off our money to then buy the Porsche, rather than we have enough money, let's just pay for it, use the money you have, reinvest it to make more money, then that extra money is what you can use. The mistake people make is then they get some money and they spend it. Okay, what you want to do is get money and reinvest it to make more money. And so saving money, I was listening to Grant Cardone this morning as well, saving money for the sake of saving is a waste of time. For instance, I remember a little while back I had just a little pot, it was only like several grand sitting there, and I invested it all in shares. I'd been researching for a while these two different companies. The payback's been phenomenal. It's on about, I think it's about 80% additional profit on the year so far, and so I'm really proud of it. But the alternative is I could have just sat it there. So you've got to reinvest it, because then you've got more, and now you can do more with that. And it's quite straightforward, but that's the point. You know, you need to reinvest in yourself that way. To answer the question directly, how much should you reinvest? As much as you possibly can. If you're surviving on your part-time / full-time job and your business is starting to make profit now, reinvest a lot. Stay broke, but not poor. Stay broke, but not poor. One of my first businesses, as well, I started paying my wife a salary. I paid out money for loads of different things, and I took nothing. Okay, because that way I can get money into the places it needs to be in a tax efficient way. I can make sure that the business can have money reinvesting in it, rather than forcing money out of the business just so I can sit on the beach somewhere. It was a case of thinking, in 5 years' time, it will be such a more pleasant world if I reinvest this money. So think on that. I mean, you should have your long-term goals as well. You know, I'm 36. What do I want to be when I'm 40 years old? It's only 4 years away. What's that going to look like? What am I going to need to be doing by then? Why not stay broke till then and reinvest it all and see where we are? So think about that. That's why I haven't bought a Lamborghini, because it's an absolutely ridiculous spend of money when the money could have gone into a house or into investing or something like that. So each to their own, right? But that's how it is. So I'm just checking out. Yeah, some really nice comments. Thanks so much for sending those. Let's finish on one more. Lots of people are talking about e-commerce like Shopify and Amazon at the moment. Yeah, it's trending big time. If you're in the right kind of circles, yes. Could I run something like this while I'm building my business so I can make money while I grow? Yes, you could. You absolutely could. I'm not going to sit here and say you shouldn't. But what I am going to say is that you should bear in mind that it's not like building a business is a hard, challenging thing to do. And e-commerce, that's just really easy. Just like stick stuff on Amazon and you get affiliate links and it's easy, right? And you make loads of, it's like passive income, and I'm making several £100 a day, and it's all really straightforward. And that can make, that can make me $3,000 or $4,000 a month. That'll be enough. And then I can focus on my business. That's absolute BS. And the people who peddle the myth are selling you probably a course on how to do that, where they make more money than probably do through Shopify, and you may get one sale or two sales, and you know what, you spend a load of money on ads or whatever. Even if you haven't and you've done it through a more organic means, what are you making? Dollars here and there. There's nothing against e-commerce, but if you're gonna do e-commerce, do e-commerce and nothing else. Right? You're going to do Shopify. And the people who make it big, who are doing Amazon affiliate marketing and sales and things like that, these guys only do that all of their day. It's like saying I've got a business and I'm just going to do some trading as well, and just do some Forex trading in the background. Why not? It could make a few extra grand. Yeah, it can, but you're probably not going to, because there are people who have quit their jobs and spend their entire day focused on this, and even they don't get it right. My strong advice, and I've been through this enough to know, is that you should get your niche and focus on it. And the thing is, yeah, there are opportunities that you should be aware of. Be aware of them all, but jumping because something's shiny and is a real mistake, because the thing you've left, your business, to go and work on the thing that's shinier and newer, is going to fail now because you're not focused or as keen on it. So now you're going to do this thing, and it will then be the case that that won't be as effective. Then you'll move on to the next thing. And you know what we talked about earlier? You're making a habit of jumping all the time. It's a big mistake to do that. If you're going to do e-commerce, you commit with every fiber of your soul to it, like you would to your own startup business. Now, as I say, I was listening to Grant Cardone earlier today, and as he said in the Millionaire Playbook, you need to think about the idea that you have multiple revenue streams. I've got probably a dozen different revenue streams. Some are tiny, some are really big, and I'm really proud of them. What I don't do is go, this is a great revenue stream, bin all the rest off and focus on this. Oh, now there's another good one, I'll focus on this and forget that one. Make each one robust, then go from there. If e-commerce is going to go really well, you sure as hell need to make sure your first business is doing a good job. As a supplemental, you're misguided, because what's happening is you think that it's going to be easy or not take much time. Of course, the people who are doing well are going to tell you it's simple. Why otherwise would you buy their course, for goodness sake? So you need to always ask yourself, when you hear internet marketers, which is really all they are, you need to ask yourself, am I sold on what they're selling me? Or am I sold on their marketing and on their hype? Because if someone's telling you about how simple it is to get on Shopify, or how simple it is to make money through Amazon, you just got to follow their 5 steps and everything's so easy, then what you're doing is you are falling for the oldest trick in the book, which is marketing, and them saying it's simple, come pay us some money, but you need willpower and you need hard work. And there's no one who's like, I'm making 10 grand a day, or if there is, it's one in thousands. Okay, now before anyone jumps in it, the 8-step startup course is 73 lessons on 8 themes. Okay, not one stage is it a case of you'll be a millionaire if you do this course. If you implement every single step in it, you'll probably do tremendously well. You may well become a multi-millionaire. All the stuff's in there, but there's no illusion that you're going to make mega money, because what it requires is an awareness that the course itself is about what errors and mistakes you need to avoid and what things you need to do right. So you need to bring it all together. It requires an ounce of wit and intelligence on your side. And that's what I really am striving for with my, as I say, my kind of ecosystem, is focusing on what's real, some substance, right? So on proper content that's actually going to help people, that I've actually gone through. You know, I'm not pretending like I've never built a business, like I've built businesses all my life and haven't. I've done it for 15 years, and, you know, plenty of other people who are very successful are doing it on the back of great marketing with little or no substance and certainly no experience behind them. So you've got to be really careful. Are you buying into the marketing and the hype, or are you buying into the product and the service that can definitely help you? And there's a guy recently, I hope he's watching this actually, who I was in touch with, and he was saying something along the lines, because he builds these exhibitions, okay, but he's keen on doing this Shopify thing because it's trending. And it's like, they couldn't be further apart from one another unless you are doing something within the same kind of world. So maybe the same kind of thing as your exhibition you're doing with Shopify, maybe that might help. But just to think, oh, I'll just do that as well and make a bit more money, you're delusional. It's a lot more to it than that. And much like most of these things, for every 10,000 people that try it, you tend to find 1 or 2 might make more than 10 grand a year off it. But in the main, people don't. I'm not being negative, I'm being real. Okay, and what you need to do is go try it out for yourself if you want to learn the hard way. But I know the industry well enough to know that a lot of people are sold on the hype. Many people buy the courses thinking, if I buy the course, then it brings me closer to the success of the person teaching it. that's that. But they never actually do the course. And so there's so much intention, but not enough execution. So just to return to that, if you're going to do e-commerce, but don't do it as a sideline. If you're going to do anything, do it full in, no distractions at all. Otherwise, you're gonna be splitting. And the whole Lao Tzu quote, "A man who chases two rabbits catches none," is so perfect for this. So on that note, take that care in that kind of that warning, if you like, and make sure you're making the right decisions on engaging with people who perhaps are very, very good at hyping up a product because they're trying to sell it rather than the substance within it. Okay, and bottom line is this: if you look at people who are good at what they do, they tend to share results. Simple. Ask someone for results. And there are people out there who do e-commerce and they will post screenshots of their results. Now, a lot of them are all ghosted out and they've just got like one number which isn't ghosted out, and you're like, what is this actually telling me? People who have testimonials, people who have screenshots of results, maybe they've got something more to talk about. And those of you who follow me for a while know I'm a big fan of Nick Kuzmich. Until anything changes, he's as good as it gets, in my opinion, with Facebook adverts. This guy, he posts all the time full screenshots of everything he's done. You can see his entire campaign, how much he's spent, how much he's paid per click and things like that, and the actual results. And it's regular, like here's more, and you're like, the guy is dropping literally millions of dollars every month in ad spend, investing in rather than depositing in the Facebook advert account, as he puts it. And the result is he's getting great rewards. So no wonder close to 10,000 people are in his group buying from him and paying for his course, because he can evidence it. And one thing you got to understand in sales is if you can resonate with someone's need, that's a start. If you look different to other people, or the idea of just spending money elsewhere, that's helpful too. But unless there's evidence, unless you can substantiate it as well, no one's going to believe you. Simple as that, really. And that's why I often share testimonials from people who are doing well with me, and keep it as authentic and genuine as possible, rather than pretending my way through things. So bear that in mind. Don't jump on the hype in the sense that you're getting sold on the way someone sells you. Make sure you get sold on what you're actually buying, because otherwise you end up buying everything because it sounds nice and getting nowhere. Okay, so there's the warning. I wanted to finish there. I think it's been a good session. I really enjoy this. As I say, 26 episodes every Monday. I've not missed a single one, and many of you have been the same. Many of you have always tuned in, and it really means a lot to me. So thank you very much for that. If you're interested in more information about the courses I've mentioned, 8-Step Startup and Basics of Sales as well, there are a couple more coming down the pipeline in the coming weeks and months, but all of them are on 8stepstartup.com. So EIGHT, not the number. I wish I'd changed that now. But 8stepstartup.com, if you check it out there. There's also, you'll see this on my posts or my feeds today, there's a new book section that I've started updating. It's not exhaustive by a long way, because I read a hell of a lot of books, but I'm just going to be adding to that as we go. So that's my take on the books that I read, and it's literally every single day that at least one person asked me, what's your recommendation as a book for this, or is there a book for that, for instance? So hopefully that can help you somewhat. In the meantime, here's the next 6 months. I really hope I'm sitting here in another 26 episodes celebrating a year with you guys. So thanks very much for tuning into the Startup Q&A, and those of you who enjoy them as much, I think it's episode 17 or 18, it might be 18, on Thursday of the sales Q&A as well. So that one's been going for several months too. Have a great Monday. Really enjoy your day. Thank you so much for all the kind messages as we went through, and I'll catch up with you soon. Take care.